Thompson returned to the starting lineup and scored 28 points. Jonathan Kuminga added 18, and the Warriors pulled away in the second half to beat the still shorthanded Miami Heat 113-92. Steph Curry had an epic three from the Heat logo. Curry still believes his squad can do something in these playoffs. Take a listen.
Our record doesn't, you are what your record is. I mean, that's what the line is, but we do feel like we've kind of underachieved on that front. But there's still belief that you can get hot, that you can establish the identity that you need to have to be a team that can win 4 games against anybody in the Western Conference in a playoff series. And until we don't have that opportunity anymore, we're going to still believe it.
You are what your record says you are, the great Bill Parcells. The Lakers have been stuck in the number 9 spot for a while jockeying for position continues. The Warriors' win last night puts them 1 game up on the Rockets for that final play-in spot. Houston, the hottest team in the NBA, riding a 9-game winning streak. Our crew is back. Tim Legler, Brian Windhorst, and, of course, Christopher Mad Dog Russo. All right, Chris, let me ask you this. Are the Warriors in danger of missing the play-in tournament?
I think they definitely get in. They have tiebreaker over Houston. I think if they have to win a couple games at the end to get that 10th spot, they will. Now, I'm not sure if they're going to win 2 games on the road to get into the main body of the postseason. Because if they're the 10th seed, they're going to have to beat the 9th seed, might be the Lakers. And if they win that game, that doesn't get them in. They got to play the loser of 7 and 8. On both on the road. So just to make the playoffs, guys, they're going to win 2 road games just again, and then they're going to probably play Denver. So I'm not sure what the length of their postseason schedule would be, but I do think they at least get into the play-in spot.
It's favorable for them right now. I think they're going to get in too, and their schedule is significantly easier than Houston's. I think Golden State has 5 games remaining against teams playing for absolutely nothing. You've got to take care of business on all of those. Then they've got a few other teams. Just hold your head above water, go 500 in those games. You're going to get in. The big one is next Thursday. They play Houston next Thursday. And even though they have the tiebreaker already, if they go into that game and they're still 1 game up and they beat Houston to go 2 games up with the tiebreaker, it's a wrap. They're going to get in. That is the game. It's next Thursday night. It's a huge one. Listen, what Steph Curry said, there's a lot of truth in it if you look at it from the standpoint. They've played more close games than any team in the league. And they've had wildly inconsistent years out of a lot of guys on that roster and injuries. And yet they're still kind of floating around. And they have nights like last night when Clay plays like that and you still go, wow, there's still a team that's so compelling and interesting and potentially dangerous. But right now, all they have to focus in is, let's just get us in to a play-in situation, and we'll take a shot any night of the week with those 2 players, particularly Steph and Clay.
Wendy?
Yeah, oddly, they're a better road team than they are at home, which is something that is sort of epitomizes their season. My concern with them is that even now, 70 games into the season, they still don't know how to play. And that was shown last night. They got a break when Jimmy Butler was a late scratch in this game due to an illness, and that no doubt played a factor. Steve Kerr changed his lineup again, putting Klay Thompson back in the starting lineup, and it was a great move. He had 28 points. It was a terrific game. Obviously they've got to take care of business. On this road trip, they have a pivotal game tonight in Orlando, second night of a back-to-back. Orlando's better rested. They're playing for positioning. That's going to be a tough one. But then their next 2 games are at Charlotte and at San Antonio. They should be able to take care of this. I think they're in okay position. My bigger concern is, again, they don't have a formula. Kerr has been all over the place trying to look for something. Just when it looked like he had something going, Steph, sprains his ankle. They haven't really gotten back to that rhythm. More than anything else, I just need to see them knowing what they're going to get on Wednesday versus what they had on Tuesday. And I think if they get that, then we have a different conversation.
Mm-hmm. Wendy, I want to come right back to you on this. Do you feel like it's time to break up that Warriors core? I won't call it the Big 3 anymore.
Yeah, so, Joe Lacob, their owner, gave a very interesting interview in February. Now, when he gave this interview, they were really rolling and it looked like they had their stuff together, and I think that's important context. But he said in this interview with The Athletic, our plan, I think he said either Plan 1 or Plan 1A, I think those were his words, is to get under the luxury tax next season. And I don't blame him. They have paid hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars in taxes over the last decade. This year's roster is costing them over $380 million, including the taxes. I don't mind him saying we got to get out of this because it's not just the actual money. Being that far into the tax affects what you can do as a team. The only way to do that, guys, is to break this team up. I mean, you can't have both unless somebody's taking minimum contracts or something like that. And so that means either they're going to let Chris Paul go, and Chris Paul, not that he's a transformational player, but if you pick up the option in his contract, you can trade that for a big piece with draft picks, or they're letting Klay Thompson go. And so it's not, again, I don't want you to focus on Chris Paul. I want you to focus on the Chris Paul roster spot, $30 million piece that they could use to get something else. If they're going to get under that tax, and that's truly plan 1A, as he says on the record, they have to be broken up. There's no way to functionally, massively improve their roster, and you're going to be negotiating with Klay in some sort of pay cut situation that potentially he's going to have other bidders on. So I don't even think it's a question mark. I think it's a statement of fact, and I think they're going to try to lean in to their young players and find a mix. And they actually can give Steph another year this summer. They can give him a 1-year contract extension, and that'll be interesting if he's in the mood to do that, or if they're in the mood to do that. That'll be kind of a referendum.
And the only problem I have with that is, well, first of all, the two moves you're talking about, Chris Paul and Klay Thompson, I wouldn't describe that necessarily as blowing it up. Those are options. Klay Thompson has an option to leave if he wants to. They offered him 2 years, 48 going into the season. He didn't necessarily like those numbers. You see the way he's played this year. I personally think Klay Thompson stays in Golden State, and I think Klay Thompson stays for something similar to what they offered him a year ago based on how he played this year. I really think there's something to it with Klay Thompson wanting to stay his entire career in Golden State and play with Steph Curry. I do believe that. I'm not saying it's out of the question. It's certainly nothing I'm surprised by in this league anymore. That's not exactly blowing it up. When I think blowing it up, like what that means, what are you doing with Draymond Green and Andrew Wiggins? I mean, they owe those two guys $160 million over the next 3 years. What are you getting in return that keeps you competitive?
Nothing.
That's my point. And if you have Steph Curry on your roster, 36 years old, I believe he is, like every year, it's incumbent upon you to try to stay competitive. I don't think you can go into a mode where you get back assets with Steph Curry at this stage of his career, where he plays out the rest of the way on bad teams. I don't see it that way.
There's a difference between the concept of a rebuild and the concept of a breakup. Because Kevon Looney, who's been part of their 4 championships, has also got an option, a team option in his contract. There's other ways to use the word breakup that doesn't mean necessarily rebuild. But there's no way this team is coming back this expensive as structured next year. To me, they're going to break up some giant pieces.
Well, here's the way I would answer it. Are the Golden State Warriors with Curry going to win another championship? And the answer is no. They are not a champion. Last year, they were fortunate to get out of the series against Sacramento. They lost badly to the Lakers. Curry, as you just said, Tim, he's 36 years of age. I don't know what they're going to do with Thompson. Green's not young. They're 2 games over 500. They are not winning an NBA championship. They are like a lot of those teams when they get old. These franchises Bird didn't win championships at the end of his career. The Bulls haven't really been back as a big-time team since Jordan's left. The Spurs have been a mess. It's very difficult to win 4 or 5 championships, keep the same guys because of contractual things, and then what are you going to do? You're going to probably be 42-40. So I think they're going to be in this situation for the foreseeable future until Curry retires, where they're going to be fighting at the bottom end of the postseason in the Western Conference, try to sneak in, maybe catch a little magic. But as far as them playing in middle of June for a title with this core, meaning Green and Curry, I don't think that's going to happen.
I completely agree with that. Those days have sailed, but I do think if Steph Curry's on your roster and he hasn't had a precipitous decline in his game,
you have to try to be competitive.
You got it. What choice do you have? Because if you go and think about trading those guys, first of all, are you even getting back younger assets that help you win? I don't think so. So it's easy to say it. Yeah, you know what? Blow it up. Look at the results the last few years. To actually pull it off and put players around a player like Steph Curry, a transcendent generational player that is still playing at a really high level, and stay competitive, that's going to be very difficult to do. I do agree with you, though. I think, unfortunately, Steph Curry era has ended in terms of winning championships.
And I think he's going to retire as a Warrior.
The choice that they have is to keep spending because they could take Chris Paul's contract. They have 2 first-round picks they could trade and go into the market and do something, or to cut spending. To me, that's where the rubber meets the road. Are you going to continue to spend like this to surround Steph, or are you not? And the owner is on the record saying plan 1A is to stop spending. I mean, I'm standing on that. And I think I'm sure everybody in the Bay heard him say that.